They changed 20 weapons in today's patch notes, and we'll kind of work through all of them. Some other minor adjustments, which are also important, is armored trucks. The health of the armored truck and resistance decreased to be in line, but still greater than the cargo truck. Damage decreased by 40%. These things were instantly deleting, so hopefully that helps out. There should have also been a note removing them from solos, but we'll see if that eventually comes around at some point. They have some other bug fixes, and they did fix the Xbox Live Silver account issue. So if you were having an issue with that, that has now been fixed. They fixed the other issue with the buy station. Hopefully this is finally the case, because they said it before. We'll have to see that when we get in game. But now to the juicy part, which is they've gone and balanced so many different weapons right here. So we have the AK-47, and this is an overall net nerf to the AK-47. Max damage decreased to 34, and that is the close range, and then long range is down to 30. And this will impact it as a sniper support, but likely it'll still be very good at long range, especially the way the damage multiplier works out. AS-44 receives a double buff, and I think this is probably one of the most buffed weapons, because somebody was talking about it on Twitter the other day, and I said, well, the initial recoil pattern is the issue. They changed the initial recoil pattern. AS-44 could be meta just based off that change alone, because the overall recoil pattern is not bad, and the TTK just deletes people. So now that that recoil is fixed, could definitely be meta, so AS-44, be on the lookout for that. Maximum damage range increased by like a meter, I don't know why. And then this one right here, the range increased by 20% instead of 15, so it got a 5% jump there in the range if you use that particular barrel. Assault Rifle Alpha, this is the STG. It also received a buff and some nerfs in here, but overall I think it's a net buff. The headshot damage increased to 158. Neck damage decreased down from 1.5, so it used to be the same as the head, and now they basically made it so headshots are rewarded a little bit more than a neck shot. But they did also increase the max damage, which is close, and then far damage, which is by a decent chunk there to compensate for it. And then we got the Gorenko rounds. The faster fire rate is now 6 instead of 6.5, so slight nerf. And then the rapid, you got all these different changes here. So it really depends on what barrel and how you're going to build it out. But overall, it's a net buff when it comes to damage. If it's still easy to use, then it could be good if the bullet velocity is there, right, for range. Assault Rifle Bravo, this is the Itra Burst. They got a damage increase for both close and far. Pretty straightforward. Assault Rifle Charlie is the bar. And this one got a damage buff on both the areas, which is pretty significant. And then now the damage range is also increased by further when you use this particular barrel, and then damage now decreased by 10% if you're using the rapid. So if you're going to use it as a fast firing, now you get a little bit of penalty. So it's mostly a buff, but there is a little bit of nerf if you use that particular rapid barrel. Assault Rifle Hotel is the automaton. They actually buffed it slightly. The minimum range at range, it does slightly more damage. I don't think this will impact most gunfights, but I think this brings it a little bit more in line, because overall it's kind of like a potato gun at range. Maybe this one damage will make it feel like in some instances it'll be a little bit less of a potato, but we're gonna have to see how that works out. Then we got the Cooper Carbine. We got maximum damage increased range, so by 2 meter difference there or so, even 1.5 meters or 1.3 meters. And then we got damage range now increased by 20%, which is huge for this barrel. And then minimum damage increased to 20, up from 19. So this barrel might be a little bit better. EM2 also receives a nerf. The headshot multiplier decreased. The damage decreased on both areas. So this one kind of like, it was still really good. If you were a very good player, EM2 is just kind of the way to go. KGM40, which really hasn't been used much, increased damage range. Range is now increased by 20%, so that number will be even further. And then we have minimum damage increased to 24, up from 22. So all around, just buff on the KG, which was okay, but this kind of can allow it to maybe breathe a little bit. We'll see how it goes once we get to the numbers and the feel, which is definitely most important. Theoretical TTK only goes so far. The gun is not like really feel good to use, then it probably is not going to get used, right? Like, if we're being honest. Then we got the Nikita, which allows us to have the magazine capacity increased and the minimum damage increased as well. So this is the damage at range. This gun really wasn't good statistically. I think this will hopefully help bring it in line. And then they increased a lot of its mag sizes, and I think this just brings it in line. So it's actually usable. It's a blue battle pass weapon. I used it for a day. Didn't touch it again. I realized it just kind of sucked immediately, even though I max leveled it. this hopefully will give me a little chance to try it again and decide, even though I think the little wonky recoil pattern is more the issue, but maybe they'll come around to that and fix the issue like they did with the AS44. NZ41 still going to have an issue with recoil, but they are allowing it to breathe a little bit by increasing the range. Maybe it'll be used more as a sniper support. The minimum damage increase, so that's 32 from 30, and that's the long range damage. And then the penalty is cut in half. Before it would take you 30% less damage. Now it's only 15 for these 50 round mags. So this could compound with this. You might end up with some pretty significant damage, and it'd just be one of those ones that's a little harder to control. Orb Weaver damage range penalty just removed, and then we have the horizontal recoil control penalty decreased to 30%, down from 50. So this is a nerf to this barrel overall. Volk, we have minimum damage increase, so that's the long range damage, so that could help the Volk, because even though it did get buffed and it feels a little bit better, it still doesn't feel like it's competitive in my opinion. So we have 22 damage up from 20, and then the XM4 got a buff and a nerf. Armaguerra gets a buff, so you got the headshot multiplier increase. That's pretty significant. Minimum damage increased, which is pretty significant. That's a little bit more of the long range. Neck damage multiplier increased significantly, which are all buffs. And then pretty much all those barrels now increase bullet velocity. M1912, that is the Tommy gun. Mid-range increase. This is one gun that's been kind of like, hey, why can't we use this gun? I want it. It's kind of fun. It's a little clunky, but it's fun. But it just doesn't kill fast enough. Now, hopefully it does for mid and close. And this is mid though, so close range doesn't really get impacted, but this will allow it a little bit more in the mid range, and then the minimum range, which is the long range. And then we have bullet velocity increased to 30 from 20, so that's a bump to that attachment. And then bullet velocity now increased by 30% for that barrel. Owen gun, min damage increased to 24 up from 22, and that is long range damage. So Owen got slight buff for long range. PPSH, we got minimum damage increase, which is kind of weird to me. Like, we should just let Owen and alone, or maybe even nerf it to the ground so that some of these other ones could shine, but that's a whole other story. Minimum damage increase for the PPSH. The barrel bullet velocity is now increased. Bullet velocity increased from up to 30, up from 10. So buffs all the way around for the PPSH. Stand mid damage is the middle range, and then min range would be the long range, both buffed. Bullet velocity increase depending on those barrels. And then we got Submachine Gun Charlie, which is the MP40, and that allows us to get damage increased, bullet velocity increase for both of these. This will be interesting because they did kind of nerf the MP40 kind of bad in my opinion, but now the long range will be a little bit more competitive, because that was one of the weaknesses in the MP40. When you're in the first damage range, it feels pretty good. At range, kind of bad, even though the recoil is very manageable. So it's kind of that trade-off. They'll find a sweet spot. Type 100 minimum damage increase. This could be like game changing for I don't know if it's game changing, but Type 100 minimum damage increase to 20 up from 18. This is the long range damage, so I don't know how effective that is, because I don't think a lot of people are using Type 100 at like 35 meters or anything like that. Bullet velocity penalty decreased to 10% from 12, negligible. Bullet velocity increased to 40. That's a huge difference, 20%. And then bullet velocity now increased by 10 on even on the rapid. So I just want those to bring in line that no matter what attachments you're using, you're going to have comparable bullet velocity, because some guns, especially when the game first dropped, people were using all kinds of weird bullet velocity attachments, and these ones had just trash bullet velocity, which impacted your bullet reg. Naturally, you're going to feel like you're getting gunned when you shouldn't be. A skill-based hit reg is just like you're just using crappy bullet velocity. You know, it is what it is. And then the well gun, minimum damage increase, which is kind of a cool one. I like the well gun. And then we got the Gawain short bullet penalty removed, so you could have a little bit. And then the Hawkinson has bullet velocity buff. And then perks, upper torso multiplier, minimal change, but it probably impacts some of the damages slightly on vital for the ones that were like a little bit too strong. So vital's probably not even maybe worth using in most cases. And then if you follow me on Twitter, I already kind of consolidated them, so you kind of got a rough estimate. This is a simplified version, I think. As you go through, you can kind of look at the different weapons, but overall I think these are good changes. I don't think the Owen gun, I think because the Owen gun is still the Owen gun, I don't think we'll see significant changes in that. But the long range meta is definitely going to have some shakeup here. This makes the Vargo a little bit more interesting. The C58, STG maybe, Eater Burst, I don't know. Bar, slow fire rate, Automaton. What the heck were they thinking? I don't know. It's kind of a little bit interesting here, but we'll see kind of how it plays. Appreciate the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.